Welcome to Desiderius Ripple podcast. In this season, we are diving into learnings from the Leadership for Green Transition, a training where we explored sustainability beyond environmental lens and as something deeply connected to how we lead, communicate, make decisions, and sustain youth organizations over time. Today, we are happy to be joined by two youth workers who we've got to know through multiple projects of ours, Anna from Latvia and Tomislav from Croatia. Anna is a project manager from Riga, Latvia, who has spent the past 3 years working in the NGO sector. She has been involved in projects promoting sustainable business practices, youth empowerment, and the inclusion of international students and migrants. Last autumn, she joined Pasaules Pieredzi, Latvia, I hope I pronounced this correct, and stepped into the role of head of the association this January. This organization brings together people who have lived or worked abroad, supporting the return of talent, as well as helping international professionals integrate into the local community. Tomislav is a frequent collaborator with OAZA. He has been on several of our Erasmus projects and has participated in other events that we have organized. His educational background includes a BA in Economics and Management and MBA with a concentration in Management. He has further academic aspirations, but meanwhile, he is currently the director of a restaurant on the Croatian coast that operates during the summer tourist season.
I mean, nobody does introductions better than Hannah. I just have to say this. Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you two here. And so let's start this podcast.
Right. So it's been almost a month since we concluded our training, and we thought that one of the first questions that we want to ask you, both of you, is what ideas stayed with you the most after the training?
Hannah, I just wanted to say thank you for the wonderful introduction, and you pronounced it perfectly. It actually literally translates to with global experience in Latvia, but we use brain gain so that it's a bit easier for international audiences. But yeah, I've been thinking about this, but after the training, the idea that I've been thinking about the most is the fact that even if you don't really have a clear strategy that you're starting with, all the small everyday choices that you make still end up adding up into one. So in the end, like every decision still has consequences, and your everyday actions really do shape the bigger picture and kind of the organization that you end up becoming. Yeah, I've been thinking about that.
One of the workshops that I wanted to highlight that stayed with me was the 4 C's of leadership, where we had to analyze our leadership style. It is very relevant to my academic background and everything, and I believe that evaluating yourself, being knowledgeable about your self-perception is a key starting point for further discussions about how someone leads sustainably. So I really enjoyed that workshop, and that stayed with me.
Great. Thank you so much. So we touched a little bit about how we feel now, what stayed the most after the training. It's been a month. But before the training, how did you connect sustainability with leadership? Was this a separate idea for you?
I would say that I did connect them in the sense that, after all, if you're not thinking about sustainability at all, there will be nothing or no one to lead. But the training kind of really helped me see how long-term strategy and vision tie directly into sustainability as well, because I hadn't really thought about the way that long-term strategy and sustainability are connected as much. Yeah, so maybe Tomislav, what do you think?
I definitely saw them as connected before, because if we're talking about broader usage of the term sustainability, if we're talking about the efficient and responsible use of resources over a certain period of time, then I would describe that as being a core part of what leadership entails. But if we're specifically talking about the environment, I would say that good leadership is quintessential to it, and that good leaders are going to be the vanguard of the green transition, that they're going to be the ones inspiring others, leading others, and whatnot, that they are very important to any discussion about the green transition.
Thank you, Tomislav. I think we would now like to dive a little bit deeper into the insights and takeaways of yours, also through the lens of your backgrounds, which are quite unique and different. And I think this is one of the reasons why we were quite excited to have both of you on this podcast, sort of showcasing the richness of youth work and the experiences that we have in our spaces. Anna, you have recently started working as a head of association, which we were super hyped to learn about when Branka and I heard about this, and certainly very proud of you. What does leadership look like in your current position? And did the training make you see any aspects of your work from a new perspective?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. But I think leadership for me has meant, first of all, working through some insecurities and a bit of imposter syndrome, and like really had to internalize that if I want something to get done, I might need to be the one to initiate it and take care of it, and to really also realize that other people are not somehow magically more capable, and I actually need to gain the experience to have the experience. But it's also been about taking responsibility and ownership and learning to make decisions, even though it's usually not just me making the decision, but still I need to be the one taking the responsibility, not just relying on other people. And the training did make me think about this decision-making process. I really liked Branko's workshop on seeing the decision-making process from different aspects. But also, in a broader sense, I think the training gave me some distance from my daily work, and it gave me a new perspective. And I think it once again gave me a bit of courage to somehow take everything less seriously and approach my work as more of an experiment where I'm learning things and trying new things and kind of adjusting. And yeah, it made me see that there are potential things that I could achieve, and there's collaboration opportunities. And yeah, like we talked about a lot about how we need to be mindful of our limits, but at the same time, I feel that sometimes for me it's almost the other end of the spectrum, that I need to remind myself not to limit myself unnecessarily, and to remind myself that there are many things that are achievable. Yeah, especially if we collaborate and learn from each other. I think that's my reflection on this whole thing. But yeah, I'm happy to answer more specifically if you have any more questions regarding this.
I mean, it's wonderful to hear how you approach this as an experiment, allowing yourself also a place for mistakes, but also time to gain the experience to actually be able to see where are your limits, which is, I think, a great point for all of us that we can take out of not just the training, but how you approach and how you took the learnings from the training in your own sense. But let's ask Tomislav a little bit, because Tomislav, you studied leadership academically, and we also know that you are trying to pursue a PhD in this way. Can you tell us, in business leadership, sustainability is often framed in certain ways. How different does it look in youth work for you?
Right. Well, first, I would say that from the business side, I would say it varies depending on the size of the business, because large corporations, they issue, annual reports, corporate social responsibility reports, and whatnot. And regardless of the extent to which, whether or not they actually adhere to them, or whether they're just greenwashing, they do have some sort of stated philosophy in that regard. Smaller businesses, on the other hand, which make up the majority of the businesses, for them, I would describe sustainability more of just as a practical means to an end. It's about the more general use of the term, and it's about an efficient use of resources and whatnot, because waste reduction means lower costs, and lower costs means, of course, higher profits. It's not particularly philosophical, and small businesses are limited in their capacity of what they can and cannot do. So just to give an example, for instance, if you're a restaurant, when you're determining the size of the portion, you want to serve something that people will actually be satisfied by. If you serve a portion that is too small, people will walk away disappointed. But if you serve one that's too large, there will be waste. But this waste is more looked at from a business angle than from a environment angle. Same thing with inventory. You want to optimize inventory mostly to optimize costs. And I would say that the youth work angle is a lot more philosophical. You can truly adopt you treat sustainability as an end in of itself, something that, we should something we should not just aspire to, but work towards practically every day. You can truly adopt the green modus operandi simply because you have more time, let's say, to separate yourself from the day-to-day stuff that goes on in a small business, and you have time to think about it philosophically and to see the necessity of it. And because of the kind of work you do, which is mostly about teaching others and whatnot, you can pursue it from that angle. Whereas for small businesses, which make up the majority, it's more of a practical thing.
And I think it's great how you actually mentioned these two realities, because it would be interesting to have a podcast about the bridge between these two, because I think we can learn a lot from going from for-profit to non-profit sector, and how the sustainability embeds in what we do, either as a cost-effective side effect, or is something like you said, it's strategy planned. But yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Tomislav, you can just take a note of a podcast idea that Branko just laid out to you. And in the meantime, I would like to follow up on your quite elaborated answer, because I think what you mentioned, even though it's like from different areas, it also very nicely builds and reflects the green transition as a term, because it's, first of all, it's about the practices and the actual things, operations. And I think this is something that you mentioned in the very beginning also with your example, but it also it's about the paradigms and the values, the attitudes that we have about sustainability, which is also part of green transition, sort of changing the way you see sustainability, and later on act upon this. So in this regard, I wanted to ask you, what kind of leadership, in your opinion, does the green transition actually require?
Right. Well, the concept of leadership is ancient, and it goes back as far back as philosophy goes. But as far as business leadership, it's around 100 years old. And there's no one definition of leadership, so there's many different schools and whatnot. Some are barely indistinguishable from management, which is necessary. But the ones that I would like to emphasize are some of the newer schools of leadership, which are more philosophical, more humanistic and whatnot, and the ones that I believe can provide good insights that is necessary for the green transition. So I would like to highlight the adaptive leadership school of thought. Here, the emphasis is on managing change. So it separates management and leadership, where management is something that is necessary for everyday tasks for which there are known solutions. So for instance, if something breaks and the fix is relatively simple, the manager will, use their authority just to get it fixed. But if there's a requirement to implement a completely new system, then it's time for leadership. Leadership here is about facing challenges for which there are no known solutions, or which those solutions require a new know-how. So yeah, this is a school of thought that emphasizes change as one of its key components, and it has a whole step-by-step procedure for how you do it, starting with the concept of getting on the balcony, so divorcing yourself from the situation directly in order to analyze all the aspects and whatnot. And the second school that I would like to highlight is the school of transformational leadership. Here, the emphasis is on a relationship between leaders and followers, whereby leaders, they create an environment and they mentor their followers in order that their followers become leaders of their own one day. So those are two key things that I'd like to highlight: the concept of change and the concept of relationship with the followers. I think that is what is necessary for leadership in the green transition.
Thank you so much, Tomislav, for this very on-the-spot definitions. Just reminded me when we were talking on the training about this. Well, at least it's a concept that I wanted to highlight. I even named it leadership, which actually goes in the line what you were saying now, how we need leaders who are actually present there in the situation, but at the same time they are distant themselves and try to look at what is the greater picture, what is the vision, what is the strategy, where are we actually going in the long term. But let's circle back to Anna and on the ground, yes. And mentioning you we talked a little bit about limitations, and you also led a workshop on burnout during the training. So, question for you: why do you think burnout is such a relevant issue in the youth work today?
Yeah, I think it's an issue everywhere, not just in youth work, because we are living in a society that is always coming up with new ways to do more and to optimize more. And there's more and more information available. You can always find new opportunities and new ways to achieve more. And in environments that are mission driven, like NGOs, like youth organizations, this pressure can be even stronger. These are people who care deeply about their work, and it makes it even harder to set any boundaries because people feel that their work has to be done, even at the cost of their own well-being, because they do truly care about the results and they truly want to achieve them. Also, the risks are really like increased by the fact that the resources are usually much more limited than in like regular companies that have huge budgets and human resources. And in youth organizations, I feel like a few people end up carrying a lot of weight, and it can be really difficult to not take on too much and to really find a balance where you are sustainable financially, but at the same time, like you have the resources. For example, if someone gets sick, the organization is still functioning. So yeah, it can be really difficult to find that balance, but this is where you need a good leader. And yeah, I also really like the idea that even though we were talking about different types of leaders, a leader that's truly sustainable kind of encompasses different types of leadership and can both see the ideal vision, but also like be on the ground and make the necessary changes and yeah, inspire people. I think that's part of it.
Thank you, Anna. Something that I really enjoyed in your workshop, sort of trying to be there for the whole time, but also like navigating other spaces at the time. I remember that in the game, you presented sort of few scenarios and things that can lead to burnout. And they were, they were very casual things that probably regularly you wouldn't think that they can actually drain you, but sort of building one thing on another. And I think you were trying to build this tension in the game and throughout the game, making people realize that first of all, you might deal with a lot of things professionally, but there also might be a lot of things personally and in different areas of your life that just like build up, and then obviously they can impact either your professional engagements or personal or both of them. So it was quite interesting to see how skillfully you're interconnected things that sometimes you wouldn't think that, but it wouldn't tire me that much having, I don't know, meeting friends, hosting some relatives, and also running a project at the same time. And you also mentioned something interesting and obviously quite crucial for our sector, particularly youth work, navigating the purpose, the meaning, the care, and the resources that sometimes you might be lacking as organization or structure also as emerging organizations. And we had few participants coming from organizations that they're just starting to build. In this regard, I would really love to hear, where do you see tension between ambition and capacity in youth work probably coming the most?
Yeah, about what you just mentioned, I also just think that, maybe you've planned everything out and you think that you can really implement everything that you've planned for, but there's always the possibility that something unexpected will happen. And for me, it's also a big challenge to leave space for those unexpected things that might pop up, because the resources are already that limited. So, you want to use up all the time that you have, but I'm really trying to remind myself that there's always something else that will happen and will pop up. But yeah, that's also connected to the tension. I think the thing is that you can't just focus on team well-being and on preventing burnout, because you also need the organization to function. There are still things that you want to achieve. And there's the balance that you need to find between financial sustainability and growing and the well-being. And sometimes you do need to make some sacrifices. And the tension, I think, comes in when ambition grows faster than the capacity, or the the carefulness makes you not aim high enough, and then you're maybe holding back on your vision. Yeah, so it's always something to think about, like what really are your resources and whether you should be aiming higher or lower.
Well, thank you for this. I mean, I just wanted to add that for me, hosting relatives is always high tension.
Tomislav, would you like to probably share your perspective on this question?
Right. Well, I think Anna hit the nail on the head in talking about burnout, because I'll definitely mention time and energy constraints as one of the key source of tension between ambition and capacity, because there are many projects, especially small events, that can be held with little to no financial resources, but it's just a matter of, is it sustainable to have that many little events, because everyone has a limited amount of time and energy and they can only devote so much to their work. So there's a quote that's been said, a variety of variations have been said by various people from the tech world, from Arthur C. Clarke to Ray Kurzweil to Bill Gates. And it's that people overestimate what can be done in the short run and underestimate what can be done in the long run. But I'd like to focus on the first part, and that's overestimating what can be done in the short run. So I think it's about, having to make the tough decision to not pursue some projects simply due to the lack of time and energy constraints, because pursuing them would just not be sustainable. It would lead to burnouts and everything.
Thank you, Tomislav. I think it leads us very well into the probably last question that we wanted to ask two of you. You mentioned that there are different parts of this very sustainability that certainly come into the play when it comes to the well-being of the organization, the operations, and the team. Which aspects of organizational sustainability that were looked in the training do you think youth organizations underestimate or overlook the most?
Well, I think that actually what sometimes gets overlooked is consciously creating organizational systems and processes, because a lot of energy goes into these small projects and events that are just happening ad hoc, but without any like solid internal structures on how things get done, everything can become chaotic and therefore also harder to sustain over time. But also these aspects like burnout and team capacity, even though they're talked more about these days, I just feel like sometimes they're still not really taking that seriously, because even if you acknowledge that there's a problem, you still have to do something about it. But often I feel like I see organizations and people just kind of stating that, yes, this is something that we need to consider. No practical changes are really being made, and new projects are still being taken on, even when there's like no capacity. Yeah, so I'm not sure if it's even really about overlooking, but about like really making practical changes. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna.
One thing that we didn't mention that I feel like is relevant is the concept of an organization's identity. So certain organizations, in this case certain NGOs, might be tempted to become part of various projects simply because they feel like it would being part of those projects would help them network, help them gain access to more financial resources and whatnot. But one of the things that they probably don't stop to ask is whether that project is a part of their core identity as an organization. Of course, the identity of an organization can change over time and you can reevaluate your mission and vision statements, but I think that's something worth highlighting, how that it's important to choose projects that correspond to your current identity as an NGO, or to have a meeting and reevaluate what it is that the NGO actually stands for and what they want to do.
Yeah, it's been kind of the same with us, because maybe there was a core idea that you came up with when you were starting the organization, but over time, with new opportunities coming up, maybe the focus shifts, and that's okay as well. But still, then you need to reevaluate what is your focus after all.
Yeah, it's completely fine to change your identity and to change your goals. It's just important to constantly evaluate that. Otherwise, there's a risk of chaos.
Yeah, it's important to be a conscious endeavor in this regard. Yeah, great, spot on.
Thank you. All right, people. It's been an absolute pleasure. I felt like learning so much, honestly, while listening to you. So it's been incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for your insights and also for the work that you're doing. And from what I'm hearing, you're doing it consciously, which is obviously a big compliment also to you as our community members, that we do love having you as part of our organization and the projects that we're having. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. And to our listeners, stay with us as we continue this series of Desiderius Ripple, where we explore how learning spaces turn into lasting change.